All right.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're just waiting for Glib, our QA manager. So I'll ping him in a chat to see where he's up to.
All good. Thank you, Gavin.
No worries.
Hi all.
Hi, Glib.
Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Glib.
Hello.
Okay. So for this afternoon session, I think it'll just be the three of us at this moment, and depending how we go time-wise. I'm trying to get one other person in for the at some point in the afternoon, but their schedule's up and down at the moment, so they were looking at joining at 4:30. But I'll certainly reach out if that ends up changing. So for this moment, we have Glib, who is our QA manager, head of, sorry if I've got that incorrect, and Marina, who is our release manager. So between the two, I think we've got the predominance of what should cover our final topic for today, which is UAT and release. So with that, I'll hand over to sorry, does everybody know Glib?
No.
I was just going to say, for Marina and Galeb benefit, it might be good for us to do a quick intro of the AU team as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first? Sure.
Want to go on screen as well, just so we can put a face to the name?
Okay. So first I'll start, sure. My name is Galeb and I have been with Civica for the last 3 years. I look after both the manual and automation teams here, including the API automation team. And I am taking over the performance and penetration testing as well in the next couple of weeks. And my job involves working with all the customers that the product ensure is deployed at. And yeah, this is the first time I think I'm talking to all of you guys. Thank you. Over to you, Marina.
Hi everyone, I'm Marina. I'm the release manager. I've been with Civica for about 1.5 years. I have been, I guess, sending emails out with our release details to some of you. Yeah, so my job actually, the majority of the things that I do is towards the end of the release. I make sure that whatever changes are committed to the branch are correct. When the packages come out, I make sure everything's included. I include some release documentation, and I also look after creating the release calendars each year for our customers.
Thanks, Marina. So I'll just start on my end. I'm Shah. I'm the project manager for this particular project. It is running as a non-BAU piece of work because of its size. So we are yet to determine how we're going to work through and shaping what the roadmap looks like and the release process. But really appreciate you having jumped on board, Marina. I think you're going to give us a lot of insight into how things operate with Civica side. Thank you. I'm just going to throw it over to Spring Street.
Screen 3.
Spring Street.
Street.
Spring 3, didn't I?
The people in the room in Spring Street, 1106.
Very time's fast, Shah.
It's Friday, yeah. I'm Lucas Sherwood. I'm the head of engineering for retail. So in the end of the day, once it hits production, it's my fault. It's a basic premise. So good, perfect packages is what I'm after. Sheikh?
I'm Sheikh Salimus Zaman. I'm a civil engineer. I have done tech lead on this Ensure project. I report to Harry. And yeah.
Hari Gupta. I'm with Vendor Solutions Tech Lead and predominantly looking after the backend, front end, interaction with other applications supported by upstream engine.
Hi, I'm Arpita. I'm the QA lead for Ensure. I look after the whole functional manual automation API as well as performance side of things. So the overall tech strategy for Ensure. That would be my idea.
That's Spring Street.
That's Spring Street.
I'll go next. My name's Greg Stoitzis. I'm a business analyst on Project Ensure. I work with Shah and Gavin and Eliza, and amongst others.
I'll jump in there. I'm Gavin. I'm also a BA on the project. So yeah, helping out Greg there.
Eliza Heath, product owner, so representing the business and the customer on Project Ensure, making sure that what we deliver is fit for business and the customer. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so looking at the agenda, it's relatively full, but there's probably a lot of it that can be compressed to a degree. So I think the best place to start is, because it's around UAT and quality assurance, I'll pass over to Galib to put together his presentation and talk through that. Then we can make sure that we cover off how that looks like from the questions that you have that have been put into the agenda, and then how that may end up dovetailing into Marina's world in terms of release. So Galib, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Robert. So I'm going to, okay, let me share my screen. Please let me know once you're able to see my screen, please.
Yes, we can see.
Are you able to see a PowerPoint there?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I'll be presenting the test strategy that we follow for AUS specifically. And as we are yet to finalize the scope of Ensure upgrade, I made a very simple presentation to help understand our test process to all the people around, because we have a lot of participation today from the BA, QA, and all the big people out there, right? So this is the QA cycle. We do agree and list the backlog for a sprint first and have a thorough analysis done on the user story. And for SOW 794, that is the Ensure upgrade, if a requirement is unclear, what we do is we'll reach out to you, for someone from AHM, possibly a BA or Arpita or whoever it is, through Robert or Jessica, and ensure all the clarifications are addressed. Yeah, and the next thing that we do is we grade the requirements based on their priority or critical functions, and do an estimate for all testing activities. Yeah, and then we do a test design, have it peer reviewed, and ensure that the internal test environment is up with the required package delivered by the developer after their unit testing is done. Yeah, and then we start test execution on the test cases design for the graded requirements that I spoke about previously. Yeah. Number 5, test execution is done in 2 phases. The progression testing, in the progression testing, we identify and remove all the defects that make an impact on the product, and hand over to the regression team. Yeah, and regression is again done in 2 phases here, and the now phase and the later phase. Yeah, in the now phase is looked after by the manual testers, do regression on the product and around the new Ensure upgrade, and in in the meanwhile, the automation testers build those regression scenarios into automation suite. Yeah, and this is called the later phase. So later phase would be utilized on all future regression runs for ensure upgrade, and where we get the regression results in about under an hour, 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So for each delivery. Yeah, and then if you think the release pass rate is satisfactory with no critical defects, with the Marina's permission, we will go ahead and start packaging into AEF. So this is an overview of our Civica test cycle. Any questions there, please, before I move on to the next slide?
I've got a question just around,
Greg.
you talked about defect, so test execution, you talked about retesting defects on this cycle here. I guess that would sit besides 5 test execution. There would be test execution as well as retesting. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. When we look at the rest of the slides, Greg, possibly you'll get the clarity on how we are doing the defect management as well.
Sure.
To be more precise, joint defect management. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Are you okay for me to move to the next slide, please?
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, please?
I think we might have to come back to this, but keep going.
Sure. Slide number 2. So in the previous slide, we spoke about doing regression in the now phase and the later phase, right? This slide forms the later phase of the regression suite for Civica Ensure upgrade. So in simple words, manual testers, after the stabilization of the code and removal of all the defects that make an impact in the application, they hand over the test cases to the automation team. Yeah. Step 2 is automation team members do the setup, do their object identification, do a lot of peer reviews, and move to step 3, like initiating the iterative testing. Yeah, I forgot to add a point on the previous slide. So whatever defects are found, Greg, during the manual testing phase would be linked to the test cases design. Yeah, test cases design during the progression phase. If we find a defect that is outside this test design, what we do is we'll design a test case to that as well, and add all those defects to the automation suite, defects test cases to the automation suite. The basic idea of doing this is to ensure that whenever we are running the automation suite, we are ensuring that these defects are tested thoroughly and ensure they don't come back to the system. Yeah. So in short, our iterative testing includes the test cases from functionalities that have frequent defects, functionalities that are more visible to the users on the ensure upgrade, test cases which verify core features of the product, and test cases of the functionalities that have undergone more recent changes. And this includes the all integration test cases and all complex ensure test cases, and selected happy path and negative test cases that we discussed during the requirements phase. Yeah. Number 4 is all defect management and reporting the identified defects and having them fixed with the developers. So this is the regression stage of our project. Do you guys have any questions, please? Greg again. Yeah. Yes, please.
Just your defect management and reporting. I'm just interested in, and maybe the slides will cover this off, so tell me if they will, but reporting, like, is that just internal reporting? Is it reporting you'll share with AU? Like, how will we be across the reporting, just so we know?
I think that should be a question that Robert should answer at this point of time, because this is internal automation testing. I'm not sure if we are going to report our internal defects at this point of time. So because how we do is as we are preparing for a release and before the packaging, if we have any known issues or the defects still surviving in the system, then Marina or Robert will keep you posted on the open defects or the known issues that you should be aware of.
Yeah,
because I guess your testing.
Sorry to interrupt you. I guess the point being is if we're getting a package delivered to us and a component of that package is broken and you are retesting it, for us to have visibility of that, obviously we just need that communication so we don't spend time testing something that's broken. So hence why we will just like to know. We're obviously going to agree to take the package, and if it's with some issues, we just need to be able to understand what those issues are and work around that.
So Greg, to be more precise here, when Civica and AEF work together on managing defects, it's all about teamwork, Greg, to find, to track and fix any issues within our ensure product. Yeah. I think we should talk clearly here. When I say we should talk clearly, we should make sure we can talk easily with each other to report and discuss any problems we find on either side. Yeah, and we agree on what different words mean, so everyone understand the same thing when we talk about defects or SLAs or whatever. Yeah, and we should ensure that we make a plan that explains how we are going to deal with defects, like who reports them and how we decide which ones to fix first based on the criticality or the priority of those defects. Yeah, and for tracking, Greg, I think we use Jira or Radivo system where both Civica and AF can see and update a list of defects. This helps us keep track of what's happening with each one of the defects out there, Greg. Yeah, I mean, we each one of us have a job here, Greg. I mean, we decide who does what jobs here. Yeah, like who looks into the problem, who fixes it, and who checks to make sure it's really fixed. Yeah, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I think.
Greg, can I add something? That's very
Yes,
good, Galib.
Marina.
Thank you for that. I just want to mention about the known defects. When you receive the release notes, whatever items are included, if we have identified any issues, bugs that are still open, they'll be listed as known defects in the release notes.
Right.
Obviously, when we deliver a package to you, if there is a critical issue that we think might be a showstopper, we'll reach out to you guys first before we deliver it, just so you guys are aware of what issue we're seeing. Sometimes you guys help with the testing to retest whatever we need to do, but any known defects will be included in the release notes itself when they come out.
Yeah, the only thank you for that. I appreciate it. That would be what would be expected. Just the part around Jira and having Jira as our tool to manage and know what defects are happening at the time. I'm not sure. I know that we've got two different instances of Jira, and Peter, I might ask you. Is it one that we can actually see Civica's Jira boards and the defects that are visible, or do we have limitations in that space?
We need to come up with it. That Shar mentioned before, we will discuss about the common toolings as a separate topic in this session, right? Like what
Sure.
toolings
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Sorry.
Yeah, we can do that as a separate discussion on common toolings to use.
Yep, that's cool.
Apart from test strategy. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, guys, if we can just go back to the, again, those agenda points for this topic, we want to understand the test strategies, the phases, etc., and then we can jump into defect management as a joint defect management and how we're going to solve for that. So, sorry, Galib, I know your presentation kind of sweeps through quite a bit of it, but did you want to keep going and then maybe we circle back to Civica's test strategy and getting a bit more information about what's actually being covered?
When you say what's actually being covered means for this project, Shar, for Civica Ensure Upgrade, I'm talking about it in the next slide, if that's okay to you.
Yeah, I mean, that is the intent of these workshops, is to really kind of get an understanding of how we're going to address testing for this project.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I think this is good context though, Galib, so please just continue on and then we can dive a bit further into this.
Yeah, I think, Shar, this is the overall QA strategy that talks more about our test plan. I mean, about our the various types of testing that we are doing in-house. Yeah. Frankly speaking, Shar, I made these slides this morning as we are yet to receive a signed off scope from Robert. My plan is to test the Ensure Upgrade includes do end-to-end UI testing. I mean, this includes to ensure none of the AEF general functionality is altered, yeah, and they remain operational as per the requirements, yeah. And we also check the look and feel of the application. We do check user validations, and when I say so, we have users of different levels accessing the Ensure applications, including the read access, the write access, and the admin access, and so on. Yeah, this forms an added layer of security on the application, and this would be validated as part of our test process as well, Shan. And based on the signed off requirements, I mean, we'll definitely look for multi-browser compatibility testing as well. And if you are provided with information on what browsers do we need validations on, because at this point of time, I don't have the complete information to present you with the correct strategy that we are going to follow for this Ensure project. Yeah? And to add to this, if there are any APIs running behind the screen functions, we'd be doing API testing as well, and we'll be capturing the response time. I mean, this forms a basic performance check, and again, we'll try to automate as many APIs as we can to run end-to-end API testing. And finally, we'll validate the critical batch jobs as well that run behind the screens. Shar, do you have any questions at all? Sorry, I'm not able to hear you, Sharon.
Oh,
Sorry, I will also direct it to our Peter as well, who is our QA lead. I'm sure our Peter's got questions. This is good context of the scope. Peter, do you want to know more about diving into the scope, or do you want to cover other things from a test phase?
yeah, I would like to go more in detail. Like this is very high level against a requirement or against a user story, but just trying to understand how are we getting the user story when we say like Genero? How are we making sure it will be like Genero? Like, are we doing some comparison from the UI, what APIs are getting called? How do we make sure from this new website all the fields that were in Genero are rightly mapped to the new APIs, or the APIs that are moved to a new infra, the contract and everything? So just a bit more deep diving is what I'm looking for.
So Arpita, what we do is as soon as we receive the signed off requirements, we'll be building a traceability matrix. That is where we'll be talking about the upstream and downstream dependencies.
Yeah,
and all this. Sorry, go ahead.
Just on that user story requirements, our side also, we are building requirements, right? As in what Genero does, what that screen does, what are the business functions. So who would give you that user story?
Our business teams, BAs.
Okay. Will there be any collaboration between our
Yes,
BA?
we do. Oh, okay. I think Caleb has already started talking to your BS. I'm not sure who he's talking to, but Robert, is Caleb talking to someone from AEF? Hey, Rob.
Right at this moment, there will be discussion. I expect there. Start again. Right at this moment, at a high level, in terms of what we're doing in the project, yes, but we'll take that as a question of at what point do we start the BA discussion about what that mapping looks like, because I'm anticipating that that'll come out of the current deliverables that we're talking about when that starts, gap analysis and the like.
Yeah, and Rob, the work that the Civica team is doing right now around the gap analysis and the mappings, so we're mapping Genero screen to the new Ensure screen. I'm assuming that is going to form part of the traceability matrix that Galeb and team is going to need.
That's right.
When it comes
I'd
to
anticipate the same.
Yeah,
Yep.
that the broader test plan. Okay.
I think, Shar, we'll get more clarity as we go. Once we start getting the requirements and we start grading them, right? We'll be listing out the dependencies and how actually we can cover the upstream and downstream dependencies when we do an impact analysis when we have these requirements.
Yeah, I am just a bit concerned maybe of a disconnect around the when those pieces of the puzzle are going to come to light. So as you know, Rob, what we are trying to do over the next few weeks is shape up scope, shape up the release roadmap, shape up the how we're going to deliver this project. And we've talked a bunch of different topics around what we're building, etc. But the QA element is also about how we're going to deliver the project. So is it your understanding that you're going to have a lens of how QA is going to progress for the entirety of the project? Because remember that next SOW is going to cover the entirety of the project, not just separate releases.
Sure. So in my view, that should be, or will have a clearer understanding as an output as what part of the SOWs that we're going to be creating. Is that your question?
I'm just trying to make sure that when we stand up the next SOW, one next SOW, not multiple, one, for the entirety of the rest of the project, we've covered everything from scope to how we're delivering this, including any agreements around the testing approach, joint defect management, etc.
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. Okay, so your comment there is, I'll say, news that it's one SOW. So I heard earlier in the piece, and if that's changed or if I'm incorrect, that it was going to be multiple. Happy to take that up internally and go, are we doing multiple or one? Because I need to be clear about it.
I was told one. I was told one by Peter. So just so you know, I was told one.
Okay.
When you have one SOW for the rest of the project, because this is not an open-ended backlog of just,
Sure.
you know, stuff that has to be done by you. Project.
I'm okay with one. I'd much prefer one because then we can clearly articulate what's going to go end to end. And in my view, if that's the way that we're going, awesome. But in support of what you're talking about, we should have it fairly clear about how our QA is going to progress through that. Right at this moment, I'll say we're not in a state to provide feedback on how that may look in that SOW. But what Galib's going through at this moment will form part of that strategy of how that's going to look down the track.
Okay, so then let's make sure that we're having those types of conversations so that what he's forming can feed into that SOW. Now, just sidebar, if you are getting mixed messages about how many SOWs we need, can you please clarify as soon as possible back to me, because I'm under the impression that we're getting one. That was the commitment we agreed. We had to do all these workshops to frame the project and stand up the next SOW.
Yep, I'll take that on board without doubt.
Thanks. I'm going to throw it back over to you, Peter, on QA.
My next question, so that the user story part is discussed. The next part would be we have the end-to-end and when we have the API. We're just interested in what level of mapping the new fields from the web and the API that is called. Would there be an exhaustive mapping of each fields that is part of testing element? When we say API regression, like is there any functional API testing that would be covered? This is two questions. One is the contract, and the second is what level of API functional testing.
I'll talk about the second question first, Arpita. I mean, when you say APIs, right, we'll carefully go through all the functionalities that we are delivering as part of this Ensure upgrade, and we'll list down what are the APIs that are working for each one of those functionalities. Then we'll have a progression testing on all those APIs, and along with UI progression that we are doing. I have mentioned it in the first slide, right? So we'll be doing API progression testing as well. And then eventually, once we think the application is stabilized, we'll add all those APIs to our API regression suite. And then we'll be doing automation regression APIs moving forward until this project is delivered. If that is your question. What was your first question? Sorry.
The first question was an exhaustive mapping of all the fields from the UI to make sure that it calls the API and passes the right field. So this way it kind of covers all scenarios when
I think, Arpita, this could be done at the traceability metric phase. Once the requirements are signed off, right, we'll go through each single screen and what are the APIs dependent on each single screen, and then we'll come up with an exhaustive list of functional components.
Yeah, cool. Okay, that's cool.
Galip, I got a question. So you run this QA suite on your environment, and your environment could be different than our environment.
That's right.
In our environment, let's say we got a F5, different setups, firewall, and various different layers. Mm-hmm. So how do we know, like, your testing is successful in your environment, but the same package when it comes to us, it will be successful as well?
I think this comes back to joint defect management again. When we deliver some part of the function, and then when you start doing your UAT or business testing at your side, when you find a defect that was working on Civica side, I think we need to sit together, possibly your testing team and our testing team and BS if possible, and discuss. And I think what we can do is on the joint defect management, one of our testers will share their screen and present you with what they have tested, and you guys can do that as well. In that way, we can reach out to the root cause analysis, or root cause of why the defect is happening in the first place. If it is an environment inconsistency, I think we need to look at the next steps that could be done there.
And this is where somewhere this need to be captured as a workflow or something.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Is your question more on performance testing?
No, it's not performance. It could be like performance.
Environmental inconsistencies. Yeah, I got you.
Sometimes, as an example, we deployed the package in production
And
it didn't work. It was working in the staging environment. So how do we? So somewhere this needs to be captured, the whole end-to-end workflow.
This infra, the way the environment there.
Because you could be right, like testing everything as per the user story.
Yes, not functional.
That's right.
Non-functional is more over here. Yeah.
And sorry, just because I want to chime in as well. It's not just non-functional nor progression. It's also there's an element of config of how we've configured our Wix application. We might the Brunswick hipster cover covers X, Y, and Z, doing some sort of weird, wonderful config that's been there for 10 years that might not be in your test environment.
That's right.
Yeah. So what do you need from us, Caleb, in terms of, setting up the environment appropriately on your side to enable testing that mirrors what we should be testing, or what
I think I need to come back to you on this one once we have all the things in place, Shar.
Yeah.
And the next time, I think we need to come back along with the DevOps guys as well in place. So when there are questions on environment, they can take it up and respond to your queries on environment inconsistencies.
When is the next time, Robert? Because I was under the impression that all of these sort of workshops were to try and land on agree strategy. So I feel like we've still got some open questions here, and environments is one of them. So when would be the next session?
I'll have to pick that one up. So if I take it in context to agree and push back a wee bit, so we're going through the discovery to understand about what we're doing through the entire plan, not necessarily landing on exactly what's going on at this point in time.
Yeah, of what we need to do is to frame the project and have a pricing from Civica, an agreement around how we're going to deliver this.
Yeah, so that to me would be in some of the planning processes. We may not necessarily have I can pretty safely say we may not necessarily have all the answers at this point in time, but this would be the entry point to give us the grounding of where we need to go to. And then when we get through the planning processes, that should pull out more about what are the things that we need to put in place to support if everybody's understanding this correctly, what do we need to do to get that in place? Because it could be something that is done in parallel in practice as we go through the other pieces. We're just making sure we identify this as being a piece of work that, yes, that's going to be done, and then we plan out how it's going to be done. No?
I think we just need to possibly revisit and close out some of these open questions, like during, I don't know, workshop 3 to 5.
You're talking about what's in the statement of work that you took. Is that what you're referring to? 3 to 5?
So there are 3 other workshops that we have got placeholders for, which was all about shaping scope, shaping the release roadmap. I think we may need to just cover that off in terms of how you guys are going to set up the environment. What do you need from us?
Oh yeah. This is not this is not the final shooting match.
Okay. Right.
I think that's all I have from the QA side. I think we can go to the release management now. Over to you, Marina.
Oh, sorry. Before we do, no, hang on.
Yeah,
before
sure.
Just, I'm just going to go back to our Peter and see if there's more questions you'd like to ask regarding Civica's test strategy.
Lucas has a question.
Yeah, I know. Lucas has a question. How surprising. Just two pieces to cover off. You've got performance is TBD. Is that TBD because we don't have the detail about what we're testing for, or we don't know what the benchmark is? Why is it TBD?
It's both of them.
But I think we were after more approach, the approach you're going to take.
Yeah. And the other approach then, whether I'd love to dive into, is your approach to security.
You mean the penetration testing? That I think that we need to have another round of discussion on that one. Sorry, I don't have update on it.
There's two pieces to my security approach. Penetration testing, absolutely, I get. But vulnerability management, obviously Civica relies on a bunch of third-party APIs, dependencies, libraries, whatever you'd like to call them. Last year's Tolerate Control piece is a good example. What is the approach of vulnerability management, seeing that we're going to have to take the same approach?
Penetration testing is a different team, Luke. I think we need to get them on board as well on the next meeting. So all your questions will be answered there.
Sure, I get that from penetration testing. My question is actually around vulnerability management.
Same as well. I think that team looks after the vulnerability management as well.
Okay, cool. So then last piece then, which is this is the QA cycle, I completely get it. What is our approach, or is it documented? Is it something you could share? How do you handle code reviews, peer reviews, making sure that what we're getting is not just the field level validation, but up to scratch, given the bunch of resources that are playing here?
So what we can do is, Luke, I mean, whenever we are doing this test design, right, we can have it reviewed with their QA team. In that way, both sides know what we are testing. One, two is we can do a demonstration whenever we are doing a delivery, right? Or that part of code, we can do a demonstration with their QA team. So we can run an end-to-end scenario with you guys sharing your screen. And three is, I'm not sure if you can do it. We capture evidences for each scenario that we are testing on, proof of testing. I am not sure at this point of time if we can share that with you. I think all these things, I think we need to discuss with Robert before coming back to you.
This is a question about the code review, like the actual code.
Code review, I think someone from the development team should answer that question.
And as agent as well, the unit testing strategy. What level of unit testing will be done? What level of code review, impact analysis for any change? Is there any strategy? I
look after the functional side of things, Arpita.
Robert may be able to.
Yeah, Rob, I dare say there's quite a lot of questions that are still outstanding around the test strategy. So sounds like you might need to go back internally to seek the right people to answer some of these questions, or share something on email to us to, read, and then maybe we can have some more focused discussions on the strategy.
Yeah, I was trying to listen to a couple of those last questions and I couldn't quite get them, because then that'll help me put focus on that on this side.
So there's outstanding information we need around how performance testing is going to take place, what that approach is. There is outstanding questions around code review, security testing, vulnerability management. Peter got some questions around unit testing, what's the approach you're taking, etc. So it does sound like
it's mentioned in the agenda as well. It has unit testing first, code review there, security performance. So we do have it on the agenda for today, along with the testing, functional testing strategy.
Galim, I got a question. When you run this test suite, how your data looks like? Like how much data you have got? Whether do you have enough data to run this suite, or you are just a very cut down version of the data? Because sometimes actual data set also changes the outcome.
That's like the config of the environment.
Yeah. So config is one part, but data also.
That would be outstanding for our environment discussion, Shah. Like
right.
we need everything
Yeah.
like data, config, all should be covered as part of the environment discussion.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's for me, this is the overarching, what is the strategy, right? Everything from setting up the environment, setting up the appropriate testing, what's getting performed at the different test phases to the degree that it needs to be performed before it gets handed over to us. What evidence gets presented to us, including any issues, etc. So that's what we're after, guys. We're after that next level of detail of how we're going to do this for this project.
Sorry, madly typing. I'm not a touch typist.
It's all right, Rob, I'll call you afterwards as well. We can have a more in-depth conversation about this.
Gally,
Yeah.
can you please go back to slide 1 for a minute, please?
Yes, Greg.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to see this. Thank you.
Yeah, you've got set up test environment, so clearly we're going to need to understand what you need from us as well for that.
Sure.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about defect management? What that looks like going forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's open the table for joint defect management. Peter, I'm actually going to ask you to sort of just throw it out there. What are you looking for in terms of defect management to support this project?
So as Lucas previously mentioned, if we can have joint Jira board, wherein if once we raise bugs, we can assign it to the devs from Civica. It can first go to Gallup, and Gallup can kind of do some analysis if it's part of the requirement or no. Like that way, we can have a joint tool instead of replicating bugs in the Civica board if possible. That would be a practice that I feel would work for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done this previously as well, wherein we had vendors dev done by some other vendor, and we in AU, and we had a common our Jira board, like the AU Jira board, and then we added the devs from the vendor and the testers from the vendor.
I think we should be good to do this, Arpita. We can discuss this more on the defect management meeting once again in the next couple of meetings.
Or do we have another meeting for?
We don't have another meeting. That was the point of this meeting.
I think there are
meeting.
still questions that are open, right? Performance testing and defect management and a couple of environment questions as well. So I think to answer all those questions, I think we need to have another round of meeting.
Okay, so I'm just going to be really blunt right at this point. This is that meeting. This is the point of that bullet point being on this agenda. To have that discussion now. Were you not prepared or aware of that requirement in this session, or am I being really blunt?
I think it's clear that there's a need for more preparation on Civica's side. So let's, my observation, and it's clear in just in this conversation, Rob, that the preparation hasn't been done. We can't quite have these conversations. I'm going to suggest that we park it and that another session is set up with either more people and with the preparation. Because otherwise, there's no point continuing on if we're going to continue with this pattern of, no, we're not ready to have that conversation. No, not ready to have the conversation. I'd rather give back people some time this afternoon and actually have a session next week, close this out.
Can I just
I
add
would agree with
something?
you.
I'm in the same position. I
Yeah.
have not been involved in the project, so I don't even have a presentation to present. I was going to walk through what I do, but
Yeah.
for this particular project, and
Yeah.
I think Galip's in the same position, we have not been involved. So we've been getting given very high level details that this project is coming. We're going to need to attend this session to walk through, but to
I
get
think-
specifics,
Yeah.
I'm not even aware. So
Look, it wasn't meant to be walk through your solution entirely. It was let's work it through together.
Yeah.
So, but this was meant to be let's have a conversation, thinking that there would be some thinking or preparation that was done to understand how we could do these things together, because it's not like BAU. So
no.
I would think from a defect management perspective, we need to be addressing things like what does the cadence of, meetings look like to support efficient defect management? What does the SLA of defect turnaround times look like? So I was hoping that some of that information will be presented. And then, of course, what are the tools that we need to use? To Peter's point, is there a joint JIRA that we can use? We know you've got a Civica JIRA, however, we also know that you're moving off that. So what does the tooling look like? So this is the type of stuff that we need to know. But more specifically, it's about the cadence of defect management, the approach we're going to take in terms of, doing the sitting next to each other, doing the screen sharing, what does the daily triaging process look like, etc. So this was quite problematic when we rolled out the first release, which was just an upgrade of New Health to Ensure, and that did not have appropriate framing of how we're going to do UAT and defect management, and it's why we are calling out the need for doing it. We had situations where we had to keep pushing out our business dates. So we had go live dates that we communicated to the business. It comes with a lot of change management that we've got to prepare for. We've got to go all the way through various communication channels. But unfortunately, when it came to defect management, 1 or 2 defects that were considered SEV 1 or 2 took 2 to 3 weeks sometimes to actually resolve, and we couldn't get dates. So we need to have a better way of managing defects. We can't wait for a fortnightly cycle. That's your BAU process. We have a project, we have the opportunity to do this a better way.
And that's what I need to know. I need to know dates that have been agreed. Is it going to be within the scheduled release? Is it going to be outside of the release? If it's split into phases, when are the phases coming? From my point of view, I don't see anything until it comes up on my dashboard. And that's when there's a target date added, when there's a release name added, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And then I'll start to monitor and make sure we understand what branches we're using, make sure the packages are going to be ready and things like that.
Yeah, it's not release engineering.
So I also wanted to discuss things like, and sorry, Marina, I'm going to come back to that one because I do think you need to be involved in the subsequent workshops, which is about actually framing the release roadmap. So if I could just explain a little bit more the vision that we have. So firstly, we've got to transition off Genero, right? So there are screen transitions that are taking place. You're building out screens within Ensure to replace those from Genero. You're building out APIs. You're making database changes, etc. From our perspective, it's not a big bang release. We're going to be progressively rolling out that capability to our business. In saying that, we cannot just roll out a screen here and a screen there. We have to bundle things and shape our packages in a manner that supports business processes. So part of the design of the roadmap is going to be, what are those business processes that sit together, that is shippable together, and then what's the changes to the UIs, to the APIs, to the databases? That's part of a business release. That is likely going to be more than 2 weeks, and we have to start to shape what does each release look like in terms of, if you guys are going to continue to use your sprint cycle, is it, I don't know, if for argument's sake, is it 6 sprints for you to develop that particular package? Are you going to release it to us every 2 weeks? What then do we need to consider from a regression perspective every 2 weeks? Or do you ship one to us every, 3 cycles, whatever that looks like? So that's part of the conversation we all need to be having from a strategic perspective.
Yeah, and I think that will come, Rob, when we sit together and fully clarify how we're going to deliver it. From my point of view, we see user stories in ADO, and we can group them as we want, right? We can do like 5 user stories in a release. They'll have their own tasks, making sure everything is together when we deliver it. But that's more of the project team will be looking after that. The development team, the BAs, once they write their user stories, all that will come through. But at the moment, it's quite early in the project, right? So none of that's ready. That's my understanding. Is that right? And these meetings are just to ensure that we've got a path, like a project path towards initiation to delivery. Is that right?
So these meetings.
Is there any user stories created at the moment? Anything that has been agreed?
I think we still need a common way or understanding of how our working would be. Like when you say release, there's release from Civica into AU, and then we also will have a release to production. So it's like an end-to-end release. So then when we say 5 user stories, you will ship to us, but that 5 user stories is not enough for us to go into production. So we will have a bigger release pipeline. There would be bugs, and we need turnaround times for the bugs to sort out. So we need support from Civica during that time. Will we have common stand-ups? Will there be any representative from Civica in our common stand-ups? The defect triage, like this, these are the common ways of working that we need to define before starting the engagement.
Absolutely, right? Peter, absolutely.
Yep.
That was the purpose of this session. It was to really just start to define the way that we're going to do this. So,
Okay. I have a couple of points that I've noted here, and I'll pick up with some of them around internal discussions that we need to formulate on that front. So I'll set those on notice.
Thanks, Rob.
Awesome.
Is there anything else, Galeb or Marina, you'd like to offer or discuss while we have the time? Otherwise, it does feel like more preparation discussion needs to take place internally.
I know there was questions about packaging, but I'm going to know more once we decide what branch we're going to use internally and things like that for the changes. That then will impact if you guys, you mentioned that you want, if you find a bug, you know, how can we get it to you sooner than 2 weeks? I'm going to have to look into that and see what we could set up to be able to do that. And I understand with the releases, we release to you guys, and then you guys are responsible to release to prod. I'm just wondering, do you have a pre-prod environment that you release to that's a like prod environment before you go?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so hopefully any issues really might be caught there if that's a like prod environment. With environment setup, maybe we can look at somehow importing the data or mass data somehow, or config. I think that's a big issue. We need to make sure the config is the same so we can pick up any bugs earlier. How that's going to happen with our environment setup, we need to make sure that we're okay with. And documentation. I know there was a point on documentation. I'm not sure if anything has been spoken about what type of documentation to expect. We do send release notes, but as this is a bigger project, if there is specific documentation that has been agreed, I need to know so I can make sure that it is generated and delivered with the releases.
And I think that's what we have to agree on. So we did again note similar types of challenges when we were doing the first release. It was getting rolled into BAU.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was very hard to sort of manage. So our expectation is that that's kept separate because this is a project. We need to make sure that, you know, if you are shipping us a release for Ensure for this project, it is for the project's purposes. It doesn't include the other BAU stuff potentially, unless we actually decide to call it, like bring it into our project. So yeah, these were conversations that I know Jess and Richard were across pre-Christmas about some of the challenges we faced and some of the need to kind of, you know, establish better approach for this project, including release management and documentation. I just want to.
I'll need to pick that up and follow that up with where that went to.
Yeah, again, I'm going to just bring us back to strategy. So obviously we want to make sure that we're collectively successful and that what's getting shipped to us is of quality. And so in terms of, you know, again, other conversations we were taking or having place with Richard and team pre-Christmas, we were trying to understand how we could bridge the gap between what you're building and testing in your environment that doesn't necessarily mirror our environment. And that's where we've had lots of issues and trying to replicate, etc. Other options I want to explore, because I'm trying to look at how do we, you know, and the team, we've had this discussion, we're trying to look at how do we get better quality of releases. Like, can you also do, I guess, before shipping something out to us, if we gave you access to a testing environment, an integrated testing environment on our side, if you did a shakeout in our environment and tested it there, will that give you access to, I guess, the right config, etc.? So I know, Lucas, I'm probably talking out of line here, but it's an option.
Again, that's why there's a workshop. There's
that's why we wanted to have this conversation. Strategy.
And especially around that packaging release, it is absolutely possible that we can take a package drop, have it auto deployed. You put it in the right spot with the right naming convention, it'll get auto deployed, and away we go. So we can actually set that up for you, that we can set aside a test environment that ensure will just get deployed to when you drop the files. That's kind of where I'd love to get to.
So do you mean we
place?
test
Sorry.
in your environment? Sorry. Do we test in your environment?
You don't at the moment.
But is that what we're suggesting? If we can do some sort of
just trying to find ways to improve our ability to, you know, close out defects that you can't replicate in your environment. What are the options in those scenarios?
Yeah, otherwise we can make that environment clone one of yours. I mean, somehow.
Yeah, there's where we wanted to get to, which is how we get fixed faster. Given that, you know, this is not a off-the-shelf shrink wrapped Ensure, this is AUH's Ensure, and so there's going to be those discrepancies. We know that our config is different to the vanilla Ensure, and so it's how we get that faster.
That's a big point. Yeah, that's a very important point then.
Yeah. To your point, is that done today? At the moment, it's about 5 clicks for a human to take the package that we get and put it into a test environment. It takes about 15 minutes. It's on our list to automate once we get that consistency into the package that we get. We want it to be as hands-off as we can.
And Marina, just one more pain point, which at least I'm having at the moment. We get the fortnightly release through email notification, and the release notes are as a part of the email, and the package goes to the somewhere in the network location. And then let's say after 2 weeks, we forget, okay, this package was delivered for which defect, and then we goes to the email and then open the attachment and then reconcile. So maybe some sort of things. I'm just putting just a thought only. Maybe like when the package is being delivered, it should have a select some README file, or maybe like some directory. Okay, these are the defects addressed in. So that should be in one place only. I'm just thinking.
Or like the package name reflecting the release.
Yes, the moment package name is like, let's say, Ensure 20.4 date and all those things, but doesn't have like which defect we raised, and it could be like the multiple defects. So this is where like some sort of README file or some other things need to be.
The package itself.
Yeah, because at the moment I got lost.
No, and honestly, this fits into our release training piece, which is our release tool, Octopus. Literally, we'll pick up that package out of that directory today, but there's no release notes. It can grab those release notes and actually propagate them through our entire system. But because they're in email, it doesn't get that visibility.
It doesn't do that. Okay,
So,
I can look into that. We don't do that for other customers either, so I need to find out more information and need to see what we can do to potentially improve that. Yeah, definitely.
And I know we put it in the agenda, and I know you said that you weren't quite ready for it, but that's okay. The piece that we would love to get to is that one package that solves for everything, right? We get an Ensure UI package, and it contains everything that we can possibly need to set up a brand new environment for that package. Our target state model is such that we blow away the environment and we start from scratch every single deployment. So yeah, the bigger those packages can be around containing everything that we need to recreate that, your unit tests, your DLLs for delivery, the everything. The kitchen sink should be in the package that we get, because then we can actually do as much of recreating that here. And so we can then very quickly go, hey, look, it passed this test at Civica side. It didn't pass this test at our side. Peter can hit go on whatever the unit tests get delivered with, and we can very quickly get to it's broken because of this. So on that release train piece, the more that we can take from Caleb's world and put into our world automatically, the better.
Yeah, I know this was mentioned previously too. So I can have a chat to Prakash to see.
This was the whole Delta, getting the Delta code as opposed to the whole package, which I thought was closed out previously just due to limitations on Civica side. Was that not the case, Lucas?
I'm always going to ask. Always going to ask. Yeah, it might be, and I know that we've had previous instances of it. Here is just one DLL that will fix this one problem, put it in the special spot inside Ensure, and everything will work. It's very hard to version control just one file. It's much easier.
You just want the full package as full as it can be.
Yeah, just consistency perspective. Honestly, if we have a human that has to manually put a file in the special spot, because that's how that particular release goes, humans are crap. Humans are absolutely crap at manual labour. Or we can automate out, the safer our environment gets.
Yeah, I did. I'm not sure if you saw the email, but I did send out something where we are automating the .NET packages. And now they're created via our pipeline, and they're also saved to a particular location. And I believe that we've already shipped a package to you via that process. I have to double check, but I might have to look into how that's going to work for AU Ensure and see if we can do something similar.
It may have happened. I may have missed it in my inbox. My inbox is terrible.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other part that goes into that story, and again, it was in here, which is especially when we start looking at how more end-to-end we can make it. It's selfish, I know. If we can have more of those tests delivered, we can run them as shakeouts as we run through each of the environments.
What do you mean by tests delivered?
Yeah, so at the moment we get a DLL, right? Let's go for it. It's the service layer. It is a package. It has some files, away we go. As we work towards a better testing environment, better testing framework, what we could look at doing is having the test that you guys run against your vanilla Ensure actually in that bundle. So we run them against our Ensure once we run it into the test environment.
Is that unit test, you mean?
Yeah, unit tests.
Yeah, that would be
The compiler, and again, I'm making assumptions about how your developers work.
Not see that, yeah.
Yeah, there'd be a unit test DLL that would normally not get packaged up, that runs the unit tests against that code. If it could be packaged up, we can then run that against our code, or our environment, to help us rule out those environmental differences.
Okay. I can ask the devs about this. I have not heard about the unit test DLL, but
oh, unit test DLL.
Yeah.
DLL, what is?
So
I'm not sure.
It may not be DLL, but yeah, every developer has a unit test coverage that they do as part of coding, right? So if that can also be shipped as part of the delivery, Because there would be some unit testing strategy that the devs follow, right? There would be some percentage that they might be writing tests, like, I don't know, 50%, 60% of the code coverage. There would be some standards for that. Like I know Salesforce has 80 or to 90% standard for unit testing code coverage. So I'm not sure how.
Yeah, they do unit tests, but to have automated somehow to ship to you guys, I don't know how that can be done.
Oh.
They do, the unit test might be manual, might be, it just depends. But I don't know the actual unit test that the devs do. I don't know how that can be shipped, but I can ask.
Yeah.
Hand it on to a dev manager. It can be done. I think it can be done. I know it can be done. We do it here.
Yeah, I can answer about the PRs and the code checks. The devs will do that when they raise the PR. There's, I think, 2 approvers or 2 people checking, and they approve it. I see all that in ADO. So when I check my branches, I can see what code is merged in. If I have a ticket that needs to be included in a release, I make sure that it's in the branch, in the correct branch. That's some checks we do, but the development team will be able to provide more information about what code review they do. But it definitely does happen.
Cool. All right. So, any more questions, team?
Nope.
Do you have any more questions for us around our process?
I did not. Galib, do you have any?
Not from my end.
No, we might have some as the project arises, and I think it's a good chance for us to catch up ongoing, just so we can know exactly what's happening with this project. So more of ours internally, so we can be included in more meetings, Rob, maybe, just so we're across how we're progressing,
Yeah.
what's expected, what is the plan, so we're all across what's going to happen with this
I'll
project.
pick that thread up with you and Galib after, not probably in the new week.
Yep, cool, thank you.
Okay. Right. Somebody else who I thought was going to join, they weren't able to join until 4:30.
Okay.
But I think everybody wants to join in between then and now. So I guess, unless there's further questions from yourself, Lucas and Shah.
I think we need to have a follow-up session that covers the actual strategy and land on things like how we're going to do testing, defect management.
Yeah, performance code reviews.
I've got a couple of other points that I'll have to pick up internally for discussions that have apparently been had. So
yeah,
I'll be following that up.
Yeah, cool. I think even if there was just a couple of slides that says these are the types of testing we undertake in the sequence, and to our Peter's point, the percentage of unit testing, what's manual, etc. Just having that clarity of the QA process. Civica?
Testing can be overarching. What Gallup showed was functional to an extent. So we have functional, non-functional. Unit testing is what the devs cover. Security and performance is always done by a different team, not the functional testing team. So testing strategy is an overarching what we were expecting, but what we got now was just the functional bit, and that too, I think there's more preparation to be done to understand what's there. So this was a normal testing strategy that what Gallup showed. That's usually the practice for testing, but for this particular project, how would we make sure? Maybe that would be
particularly the NFRs, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, Rob, performance is going to be quite front of mind because of AHT impacts.
Yep.
How we're going to go about ensuring that and sharing the results with us before it gets shipped, because we don't want to have a situation where we go through all this testing on our side, and then we get to do our little bit of performance testing at the end, and it's way off. And then we have conversations, and it's clear that potentially the performance testing strategy you've undertaken doesn't support the project.
Yeah, so I'm very keen to find out how that played out either last time or how we're going to resolve those going forward in each of those spheres. I don't have answers at this moment, clearly, but to some degree, I was kind of looking here to resolve some of that. But that's for me to pick up with Galib in terms of how that QA looks.
Yeah.
And however that might have been flavoured or affected with what's gone on in the past.
Yeah, and I think we want to learn from the past.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, great.
Okay, thank you all.
So what next, Rob? Are we just doing a wrap up? It's just
at this moment, yes, I don't have anything else at this point in time other than our objective is to get the next deliverable from the statement of work, but that is, as you know, may have a bit of a couple of bubbly bits which I don't have any answers for at this moment.
And I think we need to be clear that this particular BR reference in the SOW has not been met. Just from all of the open questions, I wouldn't be ticking this off. So from my perspective, definition of done is not been.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay,
Thanks.
be called later. If there's nothing else, team, have a great Friday, or what's remaining of it, and a good weekend.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.